You're listening to Murder Not Murdering with Erin,
And Autumn,
a true crime podcast about murder and murdering.
but we are not murderers.
Okay, so I think that last week's episode was probably my favorite episode we have ever done.
I would have to agree 100%.
I had so much fun writing it, and it was just it was like a really exciting case full of, love triangles gone wrong. I mean, both of us kind of had loves gone wrong.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was really fun to write. The only thing is we had a little bit of issues with Apple Podcast this for the last episode. Autumn, why don't you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So for some reason, Apple Podcasts wasn't populating our most recent episode. So it wouldn't show that we had released a new episode. I first noticed it when I was in the car with my dad, and he had said, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I can't find your newest episode. And it took me a couple minutes to be able to locate it on Apple Podcast.
Yeah, and
So,
I know we saw something like this had happened with a few other crime podcasts that we follow.
yeah,
And something must have happened with their program, but it was kind of a little bit frustrating because people didn't realize that we had a new episode out. And if you don't follow us on social media, you don't see that there was a brand new one. So if you don't know, you should go and look up our most recent episode. It's a really good one. So I definitely recommend it.
yes, it was awesome. It's obviously our favorite one so far that we've done.
Yeah.
Highly recommend listening to it. It's a fun one.
Yes. So definitely go check that out. And again, if you can't find it on Apple Podcast, we do have a new episode every Saturday. So you can check us out on Spotify or
Podcast app, Google Podcast,
that's right.
our website. You can just listen to it there if you need to.
Mhm.
Anchor
Anchor.
also.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of, we're on basically any podcast
Yeah,
application.
you can find us.
Yeah. So if you're not seeing it, we will let you know if we're not going to have an episode come out. But so far, it's been every Saturday.
Absolutely. So this week you're going to be starting us off.
Yes.
All right. What do you have for us?
So I'll be doing the cold case of Susan Galvin, which is a local case. So I'm very excited to tell this one. On July 13th, 1967, Susan Galvin, a 20-year-old woman who had recently moved from Spokane, Washington to Seattle, Washington, was found brutally raped and murdered in a Seattle Center parking garage elevator. Her murder would go unsolved for 52 years. And you heard me right, 52.
That is crazy.
Susan worked for the Seattle Police Department as a records clerk that summer, and that was where she was heading the night she was murdered. The oldest of 8 siblings, she moved from Spokane to Seattle a year prior, living in Seattle's Queen Anne neighborhood. In 1967, the Space Needle was only 5 years old, and they held nightly carnivals at the Seattle Center. Susan spent a lot of her free time, as did a lot of Seattleites, at the center. She was last seen on July 9th at the Seattle Center and failed to show up for her shift at the station, midnight to 8 a.m. on the 10th of July. Her body was not discovered by authorities until the morning of July 13th.
Oh, no.
The garage, which had been closed for several days, provided access to an elevated walkway above the street, which Susan used to get to the bus she took to work. The crime scene was processed with the techniques available at that time. Fingerprints were lifted from the garage elevator and surrounding area. Her clothes were bagged and entered into evidence, and samples were taken at her autopsy. The night of July 9th, she was seen spending time at the Seattle Center, with a well-known professional clown named Punchy.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
His
Punchy?
name, yes, his name was Punchy,
Okay.
a professional clown.
Mhm.
He was the last person she was seen alive with. Punchy, who had quit his job days after.
Honestly, Autumn, to hear you say punchy in such a serious tone is hilarious to me right now.
I know. Well, Punchy could be a murderer, okay?
All right. I'm sorry. Get back to punchy.
Punchy, who had quit his job days after her murder, became the main person of interest. He was questioned by police, but there was not enough evidence to make an arrest, and he was released, never being charged to a crime in relation to Susan Galvin.
Okay.
There were a handful of leads, but ultimately her case went cold. The first time DNA was used to convict someone of a crime in the US was in 1987 in Florida in a rape case. This opened the doors to new techniques for law enforcement to use when collecting evidence at a crime scene. A database of DNA profiles was established in the 1990s by the FBI, and it was used to determine whether convicted felons could be connected to other crimes. In 2002, the detectives working her cold case submitted items of hers from the crime scene to the Washington State Patrol Crime Laboratory for DNA analysis. Scientists were able to recover a DNA profile from the semen in her underwear.
Oh, wow.
But when the profile was submitted on the FBI CODIS database, which stands for Combined DNA Index Systems, no matches were found.
Oh, no.
Another dead end.
Yeah.
In 2016, Seattle Police Department cold case detective Ralph Norton, armed with a DNA profile, located Punchy the Clown, now living in Utah, and was able to clear him as a suspect for good,
Oh, wow.
as his DNA was not a match.
I totally thought for sure it was definitely going to be Punchy the Clown.
Right. Well, all the witnesses had only seen her with him on the night she was murdered.
Plus, I think we're all naturally skeptical of clowns.
Well,
Or
yeah.
maybe it's just me and you.
And then he quit his job days after she
Yeah,
was
that
murdered.
feels very highly suspect.
Very suspicious in my book.
Mm-hmm.
But he wasn't a match. So Punchy is innocent.
Oh, of that.
Of that. We don't know what else this clown could be capable of, but he did not murder Susan.
Okay. Frightening children? Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Nightmares? Of course, yes.
Frightening grown women, adults? Yes.
Yes. We're not afraid of clowns. Wink, wink, wink. For sure. On April 28th, 2018, Joseph James DeAngelo, also known widely as the Golden State Killer, was arrested.
Yes.
Identification of DeAngelo had begun 4 months earlier when officials, led by Detective Paul Holes of Murder Squad, which is a podcast that he hosts with Billy Jensen. And it's from one of our other favorite podcasts, My Favorite Murder.
Mm-hmm.
Paul Holes is awesome. We love him.
Yes,
and I highly recommend listening to that podcast. It's really, really good.
Most definitely.
I just couldn't go without mentioning him. And FBI lawyer Steve Kramer uploaded the killer's DNA profile from a Ventura County rape kit to the personal genomics website GED Match, which is similar to 23andMe and Ancestry DNA.
Okay.
It's like a public place where people voluntarily submit their DNA.
Okay.
The website identified 10 to 20 people who had the same great-great-great-grandparents as the Golden State Killer. A team of 5 investigators working with genealogist Barbara Ray Venter used this list to construct a large family tree. From this tree, they established 2 suspects. One was ruled out by a relative's DNA test, leaving DeAngelo the main suspect.
Mm.
That was a huge huge case.
I mean, it's massive. I watched
Yes.
the documentary, I think it was on HBO too,
Yes.
that was phenomenal and extraordinarily well done.
Yes.
Um, yeah,
It's, I mean, one day we probably will cover that case. It's just super, super famous, super, super
yeah,
huge. And it's a really big deal that he was caught.
yeah. And I feel like too, it's had so much press in the last couple years that,
Mhm.
we can take a long time before we get to that one.
Yeah, for sure.
It is. And I don't even know that we could cover it in a full episode.
No, it would probably be like a two-parter or something.
Yeah.
But look forward to that in the future. This was the first time familiar DNA was used to solve a case. Ralph Norton believed this could be the perfect method to use to solve the murder of one of his own, Susan Galvin.
Mhm.
They submitted the DNA profile to GED Match, where people voluntarily submit their DNA profiles, the same website used in solving the Golden State Killer case. And they found a match to two distant cousins of the suspect.
Wow, that's exciting.
Very exciting. With a less than 2% shared DNA profile. So they were able to find somebody with less than 2% DNA and still be able to trace it.
That is incredible.
Both cousins were traced back to a couple born in the 1800s, and that couple's descendants were traced forward in time. Using this and additional DNA information, it led them to one single man,
Oh my God.
Frank Wypick. Frank Wypick was a 26-year-old married father of two at the time of Susan's murder. He was an ex-soldier with a criminal history, working as a security guard in the summer of 1967. They believed they had finally found the person responsible for murdering this young woman over 50 years ago.
Wow.
It was time to locate Frank and get a conclusive answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell me he was alive.
Wypeck divorced his first wife in 1971 and was arrested later that same year for larceny, for which he spent 9 months in jail. He was also arrested for impersonating a police officer, performing traffic stops with a gun in 1975.
Oh my God.
Right? Like, not only was he a petty larceny man, he was stopping people pretending to be a cop.
That's terrifying.
Terrifying. In the mid 1970s, he remarried. Over the years, he had lived in various cities: South Park, West Seattle, White Center,
No.
yes, Burien, and SeaTac, to name a few. There was only one issue when it came to locating Frank in 2018. Frank had passed away in 1987 from complications of diabetes.
Ugh.
He was living in Federal Way at the time of his death, 20 years after the murder of Susan Galvin. Norton obtained a warrant to exhume the remains of Frank Wypeck from a graveyard in Tukwila, Washington, 13 miles from where the crime had occurred. The DNA was a perfect match.
And there it is.
Though they were able to find out who had murdered her, sadly, they will never know the why.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the DNA advances and the familiar DNA, this case would have never been solved.
Yeah.
CODIS wasn't started until the 1990s, and he passed away in 1987. Even though he had a criminal record, his DNA would never have been entered into a DNA database.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate having all the unanswered questions, but I'm glad that they have someone, and hopefully that brought some peace to her family.
Yes. And according to Wikipedia, in December of 2018, 20 cold case suspects were identified using familiar DNA testing on GED Match. And as of 2019, GED Match had been used in at least 59 cold case arrests.
Wow, that's amazing.
Right?
I have goosebumps.
I know, me too. In May of 2019, GED Match tightened their rules on privacy which will make it much more difficult for law enforcement agencies to find suspects via GED match. As of 2019, 1.3 million users had uploaded voluntarily their DNA to the public website. Susan Galvin had moved to Seattle with a bright future, tragically cut short. Her murder case, which spanned nearly 52 years with few solid leads, has become the oldest known murder case solved by a genealogy profile.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
That is.
Her family has stated that they were just really relieved to know who killed her, but they're very disappointed that they will never know the why.
Yeah, but also at the same time, they know that he's not out there doing other things, that he's not out there committing other crimes, that this was, we don't know. He probably committed other ones.
That's
no idea. That's just what was linked to him.
Yes.
But still, at least that he is not he's not committed any crime since 1987.
Right, which is kind of a relief because he sounded like he was on a pretty dark road.
Yeah.
I thought that was so cool. First of all, it's here in Seattle. Second of all, it's the oldest known case to be solved by genealogy.
It took place in my neighborhood.
Right. It's like a real hometown murder.
Yes, like literally my hometown.
Yes, literally. My sources were the Seattle Times, King 5, GeekWire, ABC News, and Wikipedia for the Golden State Killer information.
Wow. That was a really good one, Autumn.
When I came across it, it just kept blowing my mind that this literally would have gone unsolved forever if it hadn't have been for the familiar DNA.
Yeah, that's incredible.
The power of science.
The power of science. And science is real, folks, just so you know.
Science is very, very real.
We're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors, and I will be back with the curious case of Dr. Crippen. All right, so we are back, and like I said, I'm going to be covering the curious case of Dr. Holly Harvey Crippen.
Ooh, I love these long names.
So Dr. Holly Harvey Crippen was born on September 11th, 1862 in Coldwater, Michigan. At the age of 21, he moved to England to further his medical knowledge. He obtained a diploma, which was endorsed by the Faculty of Medical College in Philadelphia in 1885. Crippen acquired another diploma as an eye and ear specialist. These qualifications were still not enough for Crippen to practice as a doctor in the UK. So he ended up heading back to the US, where he kind of wandered around to a lot of different cities, practicing in a number of large cities. In Utah, during 1890 or 1891, his wife died. He sent his 3-year-old son to live with his mother in California. And then during one of his stays in New York, he married again. His second wife was 17-year-old Cora Turner. For a while, they traveled to St. Louis, Philadelphia, and Toronto. Cora, who thought of herself as a singer, quite often was described as mediocre and deluded.
Oh no. She like a karaoke kind of person that gets up there and you're like, what is happening?
Karaoke wasn't a thing then, but she really thought she was going to be on the stage and become a famous singer.
Even worse.
Yeah. She's like that person that puts their finger in their ear while they're singing.
Oh no. Did she I could picture her
Mariah
waving
Carey.
her, yes, or waving her finger and singing.
Yep. She's feeling it. She's feeling it. She's feeling herself, and that's where she's at. So
okay.
So they moved back to New York so she could train in opera.
Oh.
A year later, Dr. Crippen moved back to England, where he began practicing as a dentist and a women's consultant. Mrs. Crippen was seeking out a job at a music hall with very little success. Surprise.
We're not that surprised.
She also took the stage name Belle Elmore. And from here on out, I'm going to refer to her as Belle. It was during this time that Dr. Crippen also employed a typist named Ethel Leneve. The couple moved to 39 Hilldrop Crescent in Holloway, London, where they had lodgers to compensate for Dr. Crippen's measly earnings. He described himself as a homeopathic doctor. However, he did use potions outside of just homeopathic remedies. After a party at their house on January 31st, 1910, Belle disappeared. Dr. Crippen told everyone that she had returned to the United States and later added that she became ill in California, died, and had been cremated.
What? That
Mhm.
escalated quickly.
Yeah. Remember his typist, Ethel Leneve?
Yes.
Well, she became his lover.
Oh.
Most likely before Belle ever disappeared. And she moved into his house and openly started wearing Belle's clothes and jewelry.
What the heck?
Yeah. The police were informed of Belle's disappearance by her friend, strong woman Kate Williams, better known as Volcana.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
She's kind of interesting. You should see the pictures. I'll send them to you. Okay. Yes. The house was searched, but nothing was found. And the doctor was interviewed by Police Chief Inspector Walter Dew. After the interview with Dew, he felt satisfied and had no doubts regarding the truth of Dr. Crippen's story. However, Crippen and Leneve did not know that he believed them, and they panicked and fled to Brussels, spending a night in a hotel. And the following day, they went to Antwerp, where they took the SS Montrose to Canada. So they boarded a boat and get the fuck out of there.
So they were fleeing.
They were fleeing. After the interview, they panicked and took off, even though had they not done that, they probably would have never investigated further.
Highly suspicious.
Highly suspicious. The disappearance led Scotland Yard to perform another 3 searches of the house. The team that was brought in was the newly formed murder squad of detectives.
Stop.
I know. When you said it, I was like, oh, there it is.
The connection.
Well, there was at the time, because of where forensics were and all of that, they didn't have homicide detectives. So that wasn't a thing. That's how they created. Basically, the murder squad was homicide detectives before that was a thing. So during the 4th and final search, they found the remains of a human body under the brick floor of the basement. Sir Bernard Spilsbury, they found traces of hyoscine, a calming drug. Mrs. Crippen was identified by a piece of skin on her abdomen because her head and limbs and skeleton were never recovered.
No.
So on the abdomen, they found this piece of skin that had a scar on it. And her sister identified that as something that she had as a surgery on years prior.
Oh, that's sad.
But no head, no limbs, no skeleton. Crippen and Leneve fled across the Atlantic on the Montrose, with Leneve dressed as a boy posing as Crippen's son. By this point, the media had already picked up the story, and Captain Henry George Kendall, our goddamn hero, was keeping up with the news by wireless. He also had one newspaper. He noticed the pictures in the papers looking very similar to 2 of his passengers. So he took a white piece of chalk and rubbed it across Crippen's mustache because he had shaved it off at this point. He also blacked out the trademark spectacles that Crippen wore and knew immediately this is definitely Crippen. And Leneve was not a convincing boy. And again, I'll include pictures of them on the Instagram. And they do have a picture of Ethel Leneve dressed as a boy on there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a very good disguise. You'll see. Just before steaming out of range of the land-based transmitters, Kendall sent a wireless telegram to British authorities. It said, "Have strong suspicions that Crippen, London cellar murderer, and accomplice are among saloon passengers. Mustache taken off, growing beard. Accomplice dressed as boy, manner and build undoubtedly a girl.
So nobody believed
Mhm.
that she was a boy.
And they were traveling first class, so they were mingling with the captain, obviously. Had Crippen traveled second class, he probably would have escaped being noticed.
Interesting.
Yeah. On board the Montrose, a wait of several days ensued because the ship was out of range of wireless communication, but Dew boarded a faster White Star liner called the SS Laurentic, arriving in Quebec ahead of Crippen. He contacted the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. So he got that telegram and booked it on this faster boat to get there before they ever arrived. So as the Montrose entered British territorial waters, which in 1910 was what Canada was called, off of the St. Lawrence River, Inspector Dew, disguised as a pilot, came aboard the ship. This was Crippen's second mistake concerning his evasion. Had he sailed directly to the United States, even if he had one day eventually been recognized, it would have required an international arrest warrant followed by extradition proceedings, complicated by the fact that he was a US citizen, and they would have brought him before the Old Bailey. As it was, Dew was a Scotland Yard detective on duty acting within the bounds of the British Empire because Canada was under Crown dominion.
So he just like screwed himself several times.
Over and over again. So Kendall invited Crippen to meet the pilots as they came aboard. The sweet old captain, come on, Crippen, you need to meet these pilots. Dew removed his pilot's cap and said, "Good morning, Dr. Crippen. Do you know me? I'm Inspector Dew of Scotland Yard." Mic drop.
No,
Yes.
That is so great.
After a pause, Crippen replied, "Thank God it's over. The suspense has been too great. I couldn't stand it any longer." Then he held out his wrists for handcuffs. It gets crazier. I'm not even joking.
Just like, what? This guy is mind blowing.
I know. So Crippen and Leneve were arrested on board the Montrose on July 31st, 1910. After discovering the circumstances of his arrest, when Crippen enlightened, he cursed both Kendall and his ship. I don't know if that made much of a difference, but and then they returned to England on board of the Laurentic's sister ship, the SS Magnetic. All right.
Okay.
Yeah. So fun fact, Captain Kendall later became the master of the Empress of Ireland, which was wrecked May 29th, 1914. She took only 14 minutes to sink. She sank off Father Point, Quebec, the exact place where Crippen was arrested. So that curse, but
yeah.
Kendall did survive the disaster and he died at the age of 91. So suck it, Dr. Crippen.
Oh my God.
That was just like a fun fact. This became a complete media frenzy. People were going crazy over this because while they were on the boat, they were getting a play-by-play from Scotland Yard the entire time. So people were watching as the boat was getting closer and closer to meeting up and catching them before they got to Canada. So people, by this point, by the time they got back, everyone was going crazy. There were media and photographers that were sneaking into the court and hiding cameras and hats and taking photos. So there's actually quite a bit of photos of them in court, even though you're not allowed to do that. So it's kind of interesting. And you'll see, like I said, I will put all the pictures up on Instagram, but it's really
I love that.
So sketches from the trial of Dr. Crippen and Leneve, they were both tried separately in London at the Old Bailey, which is pretty much where most of my cases have taken place when they were revolving around London. But after 27 minutes of deliberations, the jury found Crippen guilty of murder and he was hanged by John Ellis in November. Ethel Leneve was acquitted. Crippen's trial revealed the startling, meticulous manner in which he had disposed of his wife's body. After killing her, he professionally removed the bones and limbs which he then burned in the kitchen stove. Her organs were dissolved in acid in the bathtub, and her head was placed in a handbag and thrown overboard during a day trip to France. Throughout the proceedings and at his sentencing, Crippen showed no remorse and only concern for Ethel's reputation and prospects. At his request, her photograph was placed in his coffin and buried with him. Although Crippen's grave was on the prison grounds and is not marked by a stone, tradition has it that soon after his burial, a rose bush was planted over it. Now, another interesting fact of this case is that during this whole trial, they made a wax figure of him to put in Madame Tussauds, and it went on display before he was even hanged.
What is up with her displaying these murders? Like,
no, that's in London.
Is that her thing?
No, but in London, that was one of their specific exhibits that you would go. There's actually a downstairs that you would go to, and you could see all these different serial killers. And it was like, I forget the name of it, something like the Monsters or something like that. You'd go and you could see the wax figures. But it's crazy that they put him on display before he even died. That's how big this was, and everybody was going crazy.
So it was like the trial of the century, basically.
Yes. And then also it came up in the court proceedings that Crippen had purchased quicklime, and that same drug that I mentioned before, he had bought several bits of it. You know, it's not something that you would buy just as a doctor or, you know, as doing it as some sort of like chemist or pharmacist. It wasn't just something you would just regularly buy, especially in the amounts that he did. And that suggested that this whole thing was premeditated.
That is just so.
Oh, I'm not
whole
done.
Case. Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not even close to done. So many people considered that during the trial that Crippen was shamefully bullied by R.D. Muir, one of the three prosecuting counsel. Some accounts relate that during his trial, Crippen made Masonic signs appealing for assistance, namely interlaced fingers held above the head. Now, we don't know if any of this is true or not, so it's just speculation, and I don't know that that is like a Masonic thing. I don't know.
Right. You're just reporting on what people have said.
Yeah. So shortly after the execution, Muir visited the United States, where he was very aggressive towards the press. One of the journalists asked if he thought that he would have won the case if Crippen had been tried in the US, and Muir snapped back. And he said, "Since I know nothing of American law, I can hardly answer that question." And in the evening headlines, it ran, "Man who hanged Crippen boasts that he knows no law." How very American is that?
I actually love that.
I know, right? So there were some theories that maybe Crippen had actually given his wife that depressant, but accidentally gave her too much and she overdosed, and he panicked when she died. There's no real facts to this. Also in 1981, newspapers reported that Sir Hugh Rees Rankin claimed to have met Ethel Lanieve in 1930 in Australia. And on that occasion, she told him that Crippen murdered his wife because she had syphilis.
Oh, wow.
Again, we have no idea.
Right.
There's so many theories that are out there. I mean, I saw so many theories.
Even if she had syphilis, that's not a reason to murder somebody.
Of course not. Now, here's where things get crazy. In October 2007, Michigan State University forensic scientist David Foran claimed that mitochondrial DNA evidence showed that the remains found beneath the cellar in the floor in Crippen's homes were not of those of Cora Crippen or Belle Crippen.
What?
This research was used with genealogical identification.
Stop.
Yes. And they used one of her great nieces, and it was located by genealogist Beth Willis. And she used the DNA to compare from that slide of flesh that was taken from her torso. it did not show as it was Belle's. Then one theory was Crippen may have been carrying out illegal abortions. One of his patients possibly died, and maybe that's who the body was, that was in his basement.
Yeah.
That would have made sense.
Right.
But the remains were also tested for gender at Michigan State using an innovative test. And on that basis, the researchers concluded that the body parts were those of a man.
Yeah. So that wouldn't be somebody coming for an abortion.
It would not. Now, this changes everything. They also looked at the scar, and the scar was consistent with one that Mrs. Crippen did have. And it was used as a huge piece in the case, obviously. However, it was incorrectly identified due to the fact that the tissues had hair follicles where scar tissue does not.
Interesting.
So it's kind of destroying everything. Now the question is, who is this man that was buried under there? We never found Belle again.
Right.
Was Dr. Crippen actually guilty of murder?
I'm beginning to think he was.
Yes.
But not Belle?
I don't know, because they have all those details of her murder.
Right.
Cooking the bones and everything. It's very suspect. Now, the other thing that some people have said, so it was also mentioned that Belle had a lover, and her lover was one of her singing instructors. And he also went missing. So the question is, maybe it was him that was actually buried. And I don't know where or what happened to Belle, but obviously there was some shady shit that happened with her.
Yeah, that would actually make sense.
Also, why would they be fleeing across to another country?
Yeah,
just definitely. Just based on the interview. And again, he would have gotten away with it had he not fled.
Well, yeah, he clearly made a lot of mistakes.
The most mistakes. He's the worst.
That's
He's
true.
A really bad murderer.
The worst murderer.
But the other thing is, Leneve, she wrote a tell-all book all about her experience of fleeing and hiding as a man or boy.
But she wasn't good at it. So what kind of book would she write? I was really good at hiding as a boy, but you really, really weren't.
No, but she was just talking about what it was like to flee with him, and that she openly wore Belle's furs and jewelry. And Belle was known as being someone who really dressed extravagantly. And, she thought of herself as a performer on the stage. And so she dressed that way and acted that way. And the funny thing is, her husband was very small in comparison to her. And he also was just small bodied. And he was also very soft spoken, and he seemed very kind hearted and warm and very quiet. So they were kind of like a weird, opposites attract sort of couple.
Yeah.
Again, we have no idea if Crippen was guilty, although it does appear that he definitely was guilty of something.
Right.
There is one more thing to point out that's really special about this case, is he was the first person ever to be caught using a wireless receiver. It also brought legitimacy to that newly formed group of the murder squad, and it helped create what eventually became the job of homicide detectives.
I love that.
I got my information from Murderpedia, the show Murder Maps, and A Very British Murder with Lucy Worsley. It was crazy. When I first read it and then I watched the documentary, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is just crazy. There's escaping and, all of the things that went along with that. I just found it really fascinating. And I'll post pictures of all of this on the Instagram page, and you'll see what everybody looked like, and some of the pictures from the court, which of that time was very rare to see. And you weren't allowed to have pictures in the court. So it's kind of fascinating.
Yeah. So that's even more rare.
Mm-hmm. And there's pictures of them going into court. There's pictures of her when she was found dressed as a boy. There's pictures of them being arrested on the boat. The media went insane for this story.
That is I just love that. That was so fun.
right? It was like a roller coaster.
Yes.
And then to find out that the tissue sample wasn't even Belle, and then to find out that it wasn't even female, it was like, oh
Right?
my God, what? And
Twist,
that was
turn.
even not that long ago that was figured out. And sorry, that was my dog. And we have connections in DNA. We have
Yeah.
connections with the words murder squad.
Yes.
I mean, it's kind of crazy.
It is so, it honestly, like we had one episode out of the ones that we did that we didn't have a connection.
Even like a low key one, Punchy is a performer. Belle was a performer. I am an avid karaoke star. So I can say that
No.
I'm not, I might be a little deluded too, Belle. But hey, take your moments when you got them.
You have a lot of fun, and I enjoy when you have fun at karaoke.
Yes. So we will be posting lots of pictures from both of our cases. We will see you next Saturday. Do please go back and make sure you did hear our last episode because
Yes.
it was so good. And I was so excited about it, but so incredibly bummed when I found that people didn't actually get to hear the episode.
Right. It's the Edith Thompson and Shannon Moore,
Mhm.
just so you know what to look for if it's not
Yes.
showing up for you.
Yes. And it's episode 11. So
Yes.
please do check that out if you didn't. And also look at the Instagram because there's so much more on that as well regarding that.
Right.
If you do have cases you want to suggest to us, always email us at info@murdernotmurdering.com. And we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.